you get yourself into a hole and you can't admit that you made a mistake initially, and so now you're just continuing to make mistakes. It's almost like the artificial intelligence, putting this decision together, which, the judge actually read one of the decisions and I think commented that the analysis was just gibberish and didn't make any sense.
Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Beneath the Law. My name is Gavin Time, here with my partner and good friend, Stephen Teal. We're so glad that you've joining us once again, and I don't know what episode this is, but we are having a lot of fun making these and chit-chatting, and I'm going to emphasis on the chat in this episode about all sorts of things that affect all of society as we deal with the legal world and its application to the real world, and now its application to the virtual world. And really, where does one end and the other one begin? Who knows? So it's interesting because we've all been hearing a lot of buzz about artificial intelligence, etc. And I was going to say that the entire intro that I just did was actually not me at all, but actually a cloned version of me from some artificial intelligence program that you can get on the internet. But as I was joking around with before, why would you ever want artificial intelligence when you can have the authentic stupidity of real-life lawyers talking about real-life circumstances, and truth is indeed stranger than fiction. So, Stephen, the case that we're going to deal with right now is what I call a kind of a lovely blend of a few things, which is technology, advancement of artificial intelligence meets the absolutely human characteristic of sloth, laziness, and dishonesty, and is put before the court in terms of a life is stranger than fiction. I can't believe anybody did that, but at the same time, I bet there's a lot of people doing it. So, Stephen, why don't you give our listeners quickly a quick overview of the facts of this rather remarkable situation that is continuing to evolve as we speak?
Yeah, pretty stunning issue. So, over the course of early June, a court case in New York was subject to a motion to strike, and the case really involved a airline passenger who was struck on the knee by a serving cart. So the passenger sued the airline company for his injuries, and under a convention, and I think it was called the Montreal Convention, there are limitations in terms of suing airline companies and when you can do it. So the airline company decided, the case is called Mata versus Avianca, by the way, so that listeners know what the case is, brought a motion to have the case dismissed on the grounds that it was not brought in a timely fashion. And the plaintiff, in defending that motion, filed a brief and basically made the argument that, look, the limitation period didn't expire in the circumstances of this case, and here are a group of cases that favor the court dismissing the airline's motion to have his action dismissed. And what ended up happening is the defendant lawyers, who were very experienced in this area of law, read the plaintiff's brief and didn't recognize a number of the cases that were being relied upon by the plaintiff on this motion. And so they went before the court. They had flagged in their own materials that there was something strange about these authorities that were being relied upon. The judge then basically called the lawyers in and asked for the cases. Give me the cases. And, after a while, the plaintiffs complied with the judge's orders, but I think some of the cases were still just snippets of the cases. One of them was a full decision, and the court basically phoned one of the other courts where a decision was purportedly from and found out that the case actually didn't exist. And what ended up happening is 6 of the cases that were being relied upon by the plaintiff's lawyers were bogus. And what turned out was that the plaintiff's lawyers had used Chat GPT in their research, and that's where they got these fake, bogus precedents from these cases. And, the lawyers have put themselves into big trouble because of that.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable situation on a whole series of levels. And it raises a number of obvious issues. I mean, I guess artificial intelligence is wonderful if you're a lawyer, because you can just say, get me a precedent that says this, that I wanted to. And abracadabra, even if that doesn't exist, it will just make one up for you. And so that's great. You can always get some precedent to support whatever ridiculous position you might be wishing to take at any given time. But hardly good lawyering, and really a big problem from the perspective of the ethical obligations of a lawyer to a whole number of players and participants in the judicial system. Number one, their client. Number two, opposing counsel. And number three, the court, because they represented to the court that this was real, that there was some substance to the argument, and that it was not, frankly, fairy tales instead of precedent.
Well, and I think the scary thing about it, Gavin, so the lawyers were sanctioned.
Not much. I didn't.
Not much. Well, we'll see how it evolves in terms of whether a complaint is made or whether the Law Society there in New York
that's a bigger issue.
Takes a look at disciplining the lawyers. They were fined $5,000. They were
by the court.
By the court,
and even probably when I say not much, the $5,000 is probably not much. I suspect, and I without knowing, and this is really another issue. I don't know how much the legal fees were that was spent running around uncovering this, the fact that these precedents were not real, and then the argument, etc. I expect it was a lot more than $5,000 when it was all said and done. But more importantly, in a frankly scathing decision, the judge, found them guilty of intentional wrongdoing, of misleading the court, of conduct unbecoming of a lawyer, all of which, of course, we're talking about, and I suspect a lot of other people are talking about, and I expect a lot of other lawyers are talking about, and one would expect the Bar Association in New York will probably be talking about as well.
Well, they had doubled down, right? The lawyer who actually was responsible for putting the brief together had originally represented to the court that he had only used Chat GPT to supplement his research. But as the judge ended up probing what he had done, discovered that basically that was the primary tool that the lawyer had used to conduct his legal research. So, the lawyers kept basically trying to avoid what they had done or justify what they had done, and, it collapsed like a house of cards. On top of them, as a lawyer, you just can't do that. You can't mislead the court. Gavin, I've in terms of my background, I've spent 30 years of my career doing legal research and, providing support in the back room, so to speak, to put the law together. And it's a time-consuming exercise, of course, but you cannot basically hide case. One, You can't hide cases from a court. If there's a relevant decision that's important, you got to draw the court's attention to it. But worse, to put a fake decision before the court and not even have checked whether that decision was real or not is astounding to me.
No, it's very, I think, exactly. It is astounding. It's an astounding piece of, as you mentioned, the time and effort it takes to come up with thorough and complete legal research. And frankly, that the court should expect from counsel. And as you also point out, the duty that you have not only to put the cases that help you in front of the court, but cases that are relevant and may not help you, and at least deal with them so that the court is not misled in any way. But when you're putting together cases that are fake entirely, it just strikes me that the laziness involved in that it's so much easier. Well, I don't feel like writing this brief, and I'd rather go golfing or whatever, to go back to one of our other episodes. And I'm just going to get this computer program to write it. And I wondered, and we talked about this before, I wonder if they built for the time to writing a brief. I mean, writing a brief of any substance takes many hours of work and research, and that's what lawyers sell, is they sell their time. And I'm wondering if there was billing here. Probably not, because as you pointed out, it was a plaintiff personal injury case, which are often done on contingency fee, which means that the lawyer for the plaintiff is often working for a percentage of the recovery. But that would theoretically be, in Canada at least, an assessable cost. And I wonder if on the motion, in Canada at least, one would put in a bill of costs for the time spent preparing for the motion. And if you didn't do the work and got a computer program to do it for you and tried to bill for it, that's fraud as far as I'm concerned, and another misleading of the court. But let me just dial that back a second to what really got them in trouble with the court. And it actually wasn't the use of Chat GPT. It was the lying about the use of Chat GPT. It was the usual, it wasn't the incident, it was the cover-up that caused the problem. And that's really where they got into big trouble. And not only the main lawyer who had done the Chat GPT or non-research, but also his colleague who had come along, because I think that this was a federal case and one of the lawyers wasn't called in that particular bar and was only called in the state bar. And that lawyer was sanctioned, even though they had nothing to do with the Chat GPT issue, because they lied to the court about and made up excuses as to why they couldn't respond in a timely way, and lied about being on vacation when they weren't on vacation, which I thought was, what a stupid way to get in trouble.
Right. He had filed, I think, an affidavit that said that he was on vacation or something to that effect, and that was found out to be false. So
don't lie to the court.
Well, it strikes me as being one of these situations where a person makes one mistake and then just makes it worse by making a second mistake, and the mistakes continue, and it's like dominoes. You get yourself into a hole and you can't admit that you made a mistake initially, and so now you're just continuing to make mistakes. It's almost like the artificial intelligence, putting this decision together, which, the judge actually read one of the decisions and I think commented that the analysis was just gibberish and didn't make any sense.
Well, I think that this is an important point about artificial intelligence, generally speaking, because, boy, it seems pretty attractive to have some machine do your work for you and your thinking for you. And that certainly is on a sort of very superficial level, as I said, touching upon the basic human instincts of sloth and laziness, certainly resonates with those two sentiments. But at the end of the day, you're responsible. At the end of the day, I think this is the other point too, as a lawyer or as any professional person. If you're gonna put forward Chat GPT's work product, that's all very nice and good, and you may have saved yourself the time and effort of doing the work. But if the wheels come off the bus, or if the argument in the court case has no merit, who's going to be responsible? You are, not only to the court in this case, but if the case fails as a result of your terrible work, you can't sue Chat GPT. The lawyer is the one who's going to be negligent, not Chat GPT. And I think people need to realize that when you pretend that something is your work, you own it. You take responsibility for the quality of it. And certainly with Chat GTP in this particular instance, you couldn't rely very much on the veracity of the legal research involved, which involved, if I don't like the answer, I'll just make one up.
No, and look, it's this, I guess, version of Chat GPT. Look, perhaps in the future it may get better, but I think you make a extremely valid point that you're going to be responsible for your work product, and there are so many different ramifications coming out of this right now in the court. And Gavin, one of the big things that we see in law today is that more and more people who appear before the court are actually unrepresented. They're self-represented. They don't use lawyers. And now here's this artificial intelligence that's promoted. People are learning about it. My son learned about it in his last year of university. Was made aware that basically, artificial intelligence is making stuff up, dreaming up citations to articles that don't exist. So I was already quite aware of the unreliability of some of these artificial intelligence software programs. But it's become common now, and our self-represented people now feeding inputs into Chat GPT, and all of a sudden they're going to rely on these what they find in court cases, and who is going to actually check?
Well, that's a great point. I think that, as if I'm not mistaken, it's not just lawyers and lay people that are using AI in legal proceedings, but I think there have been cases in a number of jurisdictions where judges have used it, and been caught with nonsense in terms of decisions.
Well, whether they've been caught with nonsense or not, should a judge be using artificial intelligence to draft their decisions or to make their decisions? I mean, think about it. If you appear before a judge, Gavin, and the judge passes away, like, another judge can't come and just pick up the notes of the judge and then make the decision. I think you'd have to have a rehearing, right? Okay. So how can a judge now legitimize their own judgments? I mean, I think it goes to basically the integrity of the entire judicial system when a judge basically at the end of a case decides, okay, well, I'm just going to have artificial intelligence write my decision for me.
Well, it comes back to the same point that got the lawyers in trouble in the New York case that we mentioned. You can't abdicate your function and at the same time take credit for your function. That is the inherent dishonesty in plagiarism, as an example, and or any type of use of a AI or whatever, taking credit as your work product for the work product of another thing is inherently dishonest. There's a misrepresentation as to whose work it is.
For sure. Look, thinking about this, artificial intelligence or programs have existed in the legal profession now, for a decade at least, maybe more. Family law practitioners use a program called, I think, DivorceMate to calculate spousal support and child support. You have wrongful dismissal databases that you can feed inputs into to get a ballpark idea of how much notice should be given in a dismissal case. So, those things have existed, but this is one step further now. This is a program that you can feed inputs into. You're relying on it. And what was remarkable is, in this case, the lawyer actually asked Chat GPT, are these cases legitimate or not? And Chat comes back and says, well, of course they're legitimate.
What else is it going to say?
What else is it going to say?
It's really interesting because I do think that it bodes. AI is coming. I think that it is going to be a revolution, the likes of which I don't think that society has seen, because never before, while there have been machines that can be used and controlled by humans to perform functions, there has never been machines that could control themselves and or think and make decisions based upon inputs of information. And I certainly think that the legal profession, maybe more than other professions, is going to see a major shift in the type of work that lawyers do that can now be replaced by machines. I'm thinking, for example, and this, there are a number of programs online where people can do, simple wills and whatnot using artificial intelligence. You just input your information into a program and out comes your will. I mean, that is not that difficult of an exercise in terms of processing information in a simple will situation. There are many other types of legal documents and transactions that will probably go the same direction. I can think of a lot of sort of routine transactional work that would probably go in the same direction. The legal profession, like many others, is we're at a great upheaval in terms of the legal profession, and I think in terms of a lot of other professions, because what we see with the AI, as I understand it, is the exponential growth in its ability it just gets more intelligent as it grows and gets broader and more application.
Well, look, Chat GPT is just one program. And there are a number of other programs that are now being developed. Recently, I've heard about another one called Harvey, which is, directed towards the legal profession. And, the initial feedback that I've heard from that is that this program is fantastic. So, the prediction is that basically 45% of work that is currently being done by lawyers will one day be replaced by AI. And so let's think about that. We have more law schools now in Canada. We graduate thousands of lawyers every year just out of Ontario. What are these new lawyers going to do?
Well, it's not just lawyers; it's all facets of life that are going to be affected. But I come back to the same point again. I mean, I think we'd have to have a significant reformation in the way we view professional services, because I said this facetiously previously, but the one thing is you can't sue your artificial intelligence program if it's wrong or if it screws up, and you, as a result of that, you suffer a loss. Artificial intelligence, I don't think at the moment anyways, can be negligent. I don't know what the standard of care is for artificial intelligence. Lawyers, on the other hand, can use artificial intelligence to fulfill their obligations, and if they do make an error, then the client has a remedy. I will say that I think there's at least one jurisdiction, if I'm not mistaken, that has already recognized the fact that AI, Chat GPT, and that will be used by lawyers for sure, and has, if not embraced that concept, has at least accepted it, and just with the caveat that you can use it, but please notify us when you're using it. Is that Manitoba?
Well, I think we've got, I've heard of two jurisdictions or certainly I'm not sure if it was a jurisdiction or whether it was just a judge himself out of Texas immediately following the breaking of the story here in this MATA decision, issued, I guess, a bench direction that if any lawyer appeared before his court with a written brief, that the brief had to have a declaration on it with respect to the use of artificial intelligence. And what we have now is a practice direction that has recently come out of the Manitoba Court of King's Bench with a very similar direction to lawyers to make this declaration on their filed written arguments.
Now, I will say this, and I'm going to really date myself on this point, but I have to say this is very reminiscent of the former practice directions that used to come from the courts back in the day when you did filed case briefs and you filed paper copies of cases and you were required to note up cases. And the court did not want to have any of that digital online research and took caveats with respect to things like quick law and things like that. Now, quite the opposite. The courts have fully embraced the digital reporting of precedent and, in fact, require hyperlinking of decisions in factums right away. So, courts and the law is a very archaic profession in many respects. It takes time to catch up to technology. Technology is moving so quickly, it's not surprising. But I can see this coming, that many, many jurisdictions are going to start to embrace AI because on the good side, it does provide theoretically a way to make legal work, as you point out, for lay people particularly, more efficient, less costly, and far less time consuming. And I can see court systems embracing that in a positive way in order to gain those efficiencies and economies.
Perhaps, but at the end of the day, if AI replaces both you and I, we're at a older stage of our careers. In terms of retirement, I've got a retirement plan. I'm certainly going to be kept busy, but for younger lawyers coming into the profession, this is a very scary scenario that if a computer can do basically what a lawyer would do or what a junior lawyer would do, how are these people going to earn an income? How are they going to live?
Yeah, and let me take that even to a different level, just philosophically for a minute. I find it really troubling. One of the aspects of the court system and the judicial system in our society is it is a fundamental pillar of, a Western democracy and a rights-based society where decisions of the court shape people's everyday lives. Courts and judges and lawyers are all part of that. They craft that whole tapestry of case law, et cetera, that governs the way we operate. Are we really prepared to delegate that to a computer? Are we really prepared to delegate the way human society governs itself to machines? And if so, man, maybe I'm getting very Terminator-esque here. I find that pretty scary.
It's very, very scary. It's when I read about Chat GPT initially, and I'm dating myself. There was a great Star Trek episode of the original series where Captain Kirk is up on some charges, and the prosecutor is a computer. And he goes and he hires a lawyer to defend him who actually doesn't use computers and uses books, and ends up winning, relying on some precedents that he's found in some old dusty case book. And the one thing there is the decision makers weren't computers. They were actually, admirals, I guess, of Starfleet. But we're headed now in that direction.
Yeah, well, hopefully, it won't go that too far before we're done our days and our gal. I haven't yet to see a computer robe up and put their wig on and head into the halls of justice, but maybe that day is coming too. I think we're about out of time for this episode, so I think we're gonna wrap it up. But listen, it's been terrific chatting with you, and I think I'm going to be waking up having nightmares about the Terminator, etc., and Chat GPT replacing me as a barrister. But hopefully that won't happen anytime soon. So always remember that if no one is above the law, then everyone is beneath it, and that includes Chat GPT. So until next time, thank you so much for joining us. It's really a thrill to do this. And please send us your comments and criticisms, and even better, kudos. We're always looking for any kind of guidance we can get, even artificial guidance. So please stay tuned for the next episode, and thanks for listening.